I welcome you all to your first class of history about the magical world. As you should already know, I'm your teacher, Gonhawk. This class will be all about the part of history not told in standard school, despite magists having existed throughout all of human existence, and before it, did they not interfere much with our dealings, and we were too fearful of them to interact with them. This leads to them becoming nothing more than urban legends, and most of humanity's biggest wars are completely devoid of magic. And up to the beginning of our current calendar had we completely ignored their existence. Then for most of humanity did mages act independent from countries, so their history is completely separated, and this explains why human history classes omit this part. But you should rejoice in that fact, as this also allows you to get through this class even if you are not that caught up in your history facts. Though I will admit that you will not get around having some basic idea what happened at every one particular time in history. The biggest events in history will undoubtedly have influence on what happened in the magical world on the human side. Then there's also of course the part where we humans had no influence in at all, magists as much as we have their history. This history also entails conflicts, wars and all kinds of events, some triggered by human action, but others simply developed out of the natural interactions between different races, or even also within their own, just as we humans have constantly infighting. But what this history is definitely lacking is technological development, for complex reasons that you will be sure to learn all in this class. So it seems that I have already turned away some here. I will accept that not everyone is interested by such a dry topic. Nonetheless, expect I of you to pay attention. History is important to teach us what actions will lead us down the wrong path and which actions lead us to a preferred outcome. Magists can both be dangerous and lifesavers, and you should not think that you will be taught all you need to know for that in your magical creatures class. There you will learn about the individuals, but not about the society. And no individual is acting removed from the society they live in, and the past shapes how the society works, and that past has been told through legends and myths in a form that completely warps one's perception of them. As this is the first class that I decided to choose to tell you a story that every mage should know. It is a time far in the past, when technology was still in a primitive state, and it was also a time of war. There's no specific date for when this should have happened, and the dates you get range from 10,000 BC all the way to 2000 BC, and we don't even know if this really happened for certain. It may even be nothing more than a critique from its author, to teach us about hubris, but this story entails the fight between two nations. One was small, nothing more than a singular city, with some land surrounding it, but nothing more beyond the island it was built on. The other was a powerful force of its time. But despite being such a powerful force, did it fear that small city, for one reason and one reason alone. Unlike all the other countries, did this one live in harmony with the gods that dwelled within the sea, gods who were able to bring countries to ruin as much as they had raised this country to power. The large kingdom, on fear of that small country no longer being content to just their own island, started a war. But this war was not a simple attack, as no force in the world would have stood a chance against a god, so instead they used their political powers to slowly form pacts with surrounding countries. At first these seemed as nothing more than normal trade pacts, but with the years to come did their intentions become apparent. They had used their larger size to cut off the land of the gods of trade. However, did that not end this country, as they were still able to feed themselves through their own means. But over time did they get angry. In their anger did they decide to turn to their protective deity, the exact act so feared to happen. The god of the sea was commanded to destroy the country that had attacked them. Just as they had been cut off of resources, did they command the god to flood the land and drown the crops. This act was at first successful, with the attackers being brought into bredouille had they no chance but to cancel the contracts they held, as they had lost the ability to uphold their side. The issue only came afterwards. Seeing what power they held, did the small countries start to desire more, and thus did they once more command the god to help. You should all have heard that you cannot gain something from a god without exchanging for something of equal value, and with that country ordering the destruction of the other country, this demands them what paid up front by them, and with the only thing of equal value they had, with their own country's existence. For 7 days and 7 nights did this country get flooded, until every living being in sight drowned. All buildings were turned to rubble, and the rubble swept away by the waves, and finally all land sunk into the sea. Or so the story goes. It is unclear if this was just criticism of the current government, or a real story, but there are evidence for an island where the city was, and there are traces of a god having been there. Now the god in question was a leviathan, and those normally would never live this close to land, due to their size making such shallow water unfavorable. But the part you most likely are more interested in should be the name of that city, and some of you may have already guessed its name. It's a popular mythos and all kinds of stories, though they never uphold the original idea, more than by name, and that name is of course Atlantis. We may not know the validity of this event, but we can still learn of it. The story was not meant as a bedtime story. It was meant as a criticism of the state and society, and the overindulgence in ignorant living. There always will be a price for those who take without giving, but for us more importantly is the lesson on what sheer destructive power magies we categorize gods have. They are beings whose power widely overshoots whatever we could imagine. It is best said that we should never interact with gods, despite all the power they wield, and humans only recently having gained the ability to fight them head on, did we somehow survive to this day, so it is sure to say that they don't cause any harm as long as we don't force it.